Well, welcome back. We're out in the field today and we've got our drip irrigation hooked up and we're testing the water and checking for leaks and all that. I'm going to show you how we hook up our drip and how we do it. There's more than one way to do it, but I'm going to show you how we do it. All right, we have a well that pumps about 90 gallons a minute, and that's pretty perfect for what we need as far as the water volume for our different zones in our drip field. Right there we have a sand filter that catches and releases the sand in the water. Underneath this bucket right here, we have a little injection pump that pumps a solution out of that barrel in that tube going down to the main water supply. And what it does is it kind of keeps the iron from plugging up the emitters in the drip lines. The water in our water table around here has a lot of iron in it, and so that solution keeps it from forming and dissolves it and whatever you want to call it, but it makes a big difference. We got a check valve down there at the bottom of that tube, and that keeps the water from backflowing, up into the tube, back into the barrel, especially when the system's off. I just had to replace this pump this year. I've had the other one for a pretty good while, but it finally wore out. It wouldn't hold its prime. These little jokers are expensive, but anyway, you gotta have it. Okay, we've got our main filter. We got a pressure gauge here, right here by the well. Once we get the zones running and everything's working good, we'll make a note of what each zone's pressure should be, and that way we can kind of monitor throughout the year. When the water's on, we can tell, something's wrong if the pressure is way different than what it should be. All right, we've got our main 3-inch blue lay flat. And it goes down here to 3 valves. Okay, there's 3 valves underneath these bucket tops. We use those to protect them from the sun. So you've got your main water source coming from the well, and when it hits this, we've got our field broken up into 3 zones. So you got zone 1, 2, and 3. Right now we've got zone 2 on. You can tell how the water has filled up that pipe, and the other 2 are empty, flat, which is why they call it lay flat. These valves right here are set on a timer, and I can program each zone to come on at a certain time and how many minutes I want each zone to come on. And so, technically I don't even have to be here. I do like to clean out the filter though, at least once or twice a week. Obviously I do have to be here for that. So, but other than that, the water will come on and off by itself with that timer and do its thing by itself. Now when we get ready to run the fertilizer injection through the drip, then I do have to be here for that, and we'll talk about that later. All right, from each zone comes down here to 3 elbows, and then we go all the way across the field. We run that blue lay flat all the way up on each zone up until it gets ready to tie in to the black hose. So right here on this first zone, we don't need a blue hose because we're starting on the corner, so we just tie it straight in. On zone 2 and 3, we have to go all the way across till each zone starts, and then that's where we tie it into the black hose. All right, and because our rows are too long to put the water at the end, we go across the middle of the field. And so we pull up the drip, we make a mark, get it straight all the way across. And then we pull up the drip tape, you know, punch a hole, pull up the drip tape, cut it, and splice it into this 1.5-inch black pipe. And then you punch a hole in that black pipe, and these fittings screw onto the end of the drip tape, and then they have a barbed end and they pop right in. We usually get 2 years use out of the black and the lay flat. By then, the pressure of the water and just sitting out in the sun, it's usually best just to replace them. If you get holes in this black pipe, we've got goof plugs that you can plug in, because on the second year when you use it, it's not going to match up exactly. If you get a pinhole in the blue pipe, you can't really plug it. You usually have to cut it and put a coupler. I'm going to show you what these little fittings look like. All right, this is a fitting that goes into the black pipe. There on the left, you see that barbed end. You have a little special hole puncher that punches that hole, and that barbed end goes right in. And then the drip tape right here screws on, tightens up. And that's how you get your water from your black hose into your drip tape. If you ever have a hole in the 1.5-inch black hose, you can just plug it with these little goof plugs, and they do a good job of sealing it up. It's really not too complicated, the whole drip system. It's important to have, enough pressure to pressure up those lines and keep them pressured up all the way to the ends uniformly across your zone. So if you're doing it yourself, you got to kind of play with it. I know the water volume and the size of the zones it takes for me, and how big to make the zones, etc. If you're starting from scratch, then you're going to have to play around with it. If the drip lines are not pressured up, they're not really going to drip. We leave those pieces on the ends of each row of the drip tape sticking out, and that's a good way to tell. You just squeeze it and you can tell if your water is dripping and if it's got plenty of pressure. And also, obviously, gauges help too. I've got this red light on a pole right here. Anytime my water drip system is on, that red light's on. So if I'm out in the field somewhere, or even as far away as the blacktop, I can see it. And I also have a camera where I can see it from my phone, so I know if it cut on or cut off, when it was supposed to. All right, here we are at the end of a row. The drip tape is very pressured up. I can't hardly even squeeze it, and it's dripping, so that tells you that it's working right. And you can walk down the end of each row on the zone that we have on, and easily see. What I usually do is put everything that's not a melon, tomato, squash, cucumber, pepper, eggplant, all in the same zone, and I water and fertilize them the same. And then everything that is a melon, cantaloupe, watermelon, I put them on their own zones, because they'll be watered and fertilized differently. Now, there'll be different ages of those melons on the same zone, but even if I have a younger and an older planting on the same zone, I really don't have any choice but to water and fertilize that the same way. I would say it's best to, separate some of your crops on zones, because they don't all take the same amount of water, if possible. You know, I had somebody ask me in the comments on the last video about when and how much to water under the plastic, and that takes a long time to kind of figure that out. But kind of a rule of thumb is, you know, you want it to stay the same moisture level almost all the time if possible. You want it consistent. You don't want big fluctuations of wet and dry, so you just kind of have to play with it. And of course, as the season goes on, you know, when the crop starts putting on fruit and you have a big fruit load, it's going to take up more water, so you have to water more. And you know, there's instruments and all you can use. I don't really do that. I just kind of have a schedule that I kind of stay with, plus or minus each year. You know, rainfall will make a difference, temperature will make a difference. You know, you can stick your finger in the hole where the plant is under the plastic and feel. You know, that's really about the best way. You just kind of feel the consistency of the soil. You know, your soil type will be different than mine, and so that may be you might need to be watering more or less. So those are all things you just have to play with. Some of that audio is probably a little bit too windy. It's hard to be out here this time of the year in late March when it's not windy. Hopefully you could hear me okay. You know, your drip system doesn't have to be any kind of big elaborate thing, but drip irrigation, especially combined with the plastic mulch, is one of the best and most efficient ways. You know, you hold your moisture in under that plastic, you keep a consistent moisture level throughout the year, you can fertilize in the root zone. I mean, it's just a good deal all the way around. It's a little bit of trouble if you haven't done it before, but you know, it's especially for somebody like me, it's expensive, but it's worth it. So anyway, hard to believe, but it's planting time. It's actually been colder here than normal, especially at night. We've had some beautiful days, but my plants in the greenhouse are probably a little bit behind, so they're not quite ready, but we're ready to go in the field. We got, you know, the water, everything on and checked. I don't like to plant anything until I can have the water ready to go. So next video should be planting time. So hope y'all will tune in and see y'all next time.